All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Um, this is our first night using this wonderful platform called StreamYard. So we'll see how it works uh, and make decisions going forth. So let's just so we can see everyone. Let's see what it does here. Oops. You can't see everyone. Oh, there you go. All right. So that's most of the group there. So we can see each other. And we're going to go ahead and get started. There are other people that are watching. I don't know if you can see that on the screen there. So the number will probably go up once. Hold on a second. All right. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So here we go. This is our third week in doing our men's group. And so glad you guys could join. And we're going to talk tonight. The topic is building stronger families. And so that'll be what we're talking about. And I'm going to go through and give some of the basic stuff and then make a short presentation about the families aspect. And then we have open dialogue. And again, your job is to share what your thoughts are. There's only room for 10 people. So you're speaking on behalf of the other people who can't join in because there aren't those spots there. They can watch, but they can't join in. So here we go. So let me share my screen. And some of you are new, so this precursor will be a help to you. All right. So the focus of the group is just for us to have a chance to dialogue and to talk about things that matter to us. And the platform we'll use is the 4 M's. And this was a concept that was developed a couple of years ago, looking at several different problems and trying to find a theme that ran through them as to what made them possible. And so when I looked at challenges as well as successes, the same 4 things were made possible. It's by having a map, a person's mental wellness, how well they use mediation, as well as their use of mentoring. And so in mapping, you're asking the question, where are you going? In mental wellness, are you okay? In mediation, did you consider this? And last but not least, mentoring, who's got your back and who are you following? So again, when you look at success or challenges, those 4 things are at play. And often what we do is we make an effort in one of those areas. We really put an effort to have a map, or really focus on our mental wellness, or really look at different options through mediation, or really lean heavily on mentoring. But what I've learned is that we need to use all 4 of them. And they don't have any greater weight than the others. And often when you're maybe in the moment doing one, it has the ability to affect the other 3. So often when you're working on your mental wellness, that allows you to come up with a better map, that allows you to seek out mediation, allows you to do mentoring, and vice versa for any of the other 3, excuse me. This is the same concept, and I want to just share with you all to remember, sometimes for people that works, for other people this works. So just be mindful, as often your message is on target, but often some of the other things that you're using to make your point may have to be modified to make it simpler or more complex, or someone in between. The whole person, again, along with those 4 M's, we want to make sure that we have a part in our life that we recognize the importance of health, spirituality, personal development, finances, the environment, the education, recreation, and our family and friends. And tonight's time that we're going to be spending is going to focus primarily on family and friends, but you'll see that the implications are for you as a whole person. We also want to underscore the importance of making sure that when you make decisions, that you're keeping in mind that it affects all different parts of your life and all different parts of you as a person. So a financial decision will have impact on your health, will have impact on your education, will have impact on how you're able to recreate. So just remember that you are a whole person, and all decisions that you make have implications for the totality of who you are. At a future time, we'll talk more about this roadmap, but I just want to share it with you. That's really the end product of what we're trying to work on, is putting together where we want to go and putting it in writing, so we have it as an anchor for ourselves, and that we're able to share that with others as well. But again, we'll dive into that in future times that we have together. Same thing I presented earlier, the same 4 M's, just laid out differently. Again, the message sometimes is better articulated in a different format. I also think it's important to understand why change happens for people. Is often it's one of these 4, and there's a preferred one, but it happens for all 4 of these reasons. Sometimes it happens because people have been wounded enough and they feel hurt, and often they feel that they have to do it. Another time, people will make changes because they realized enough and they've been inspired and they've seen enough. Another aspect for behavioral change is that people are educated enough. They feel they know, and now they want to. But what I've realized is that the best change happens is because people have received enough. They feel they have the ability, they feel empowered. And again, the changes can happen for those other reasons. But I want to share with you, I think, is when people feel that they have all the equipment to at least get started, it goes a long way with them being able to accomplish the change that they want. Things that get in the way of changes are these 10 things, and they have a long title. It says the righteous, predatory stealers of greed. One, because people feel that they're right when they do these things. They don't often realize how predatory the behavior is when they do them. And also they don't realize how much they're stealing by doing what they're doing. And also it's a form of greed. So it's important for us to keep that in mind as we're navigating through life, is these 10. But let me just articulate them a little bit for you. So there's jealousy, there's illogical thinking, there's a sense of entitlement, there's silence, there's anger, there's selfishness, there's lazy and lackadaisical behavior, there's lying, there's thieving, and there's craving. The reality of it is when you do one, you have done the other 9 as well. And why is that important? Is because sometimes we have a tough time being able to overcome the circumstance, and we wonder, why is it so difficult? Because often they just saw your anger, but often you were angry because you were jealous of a circumstance. You were angry because your thinking is illogical. You were angry because you had a sense of entitlement. So again, often it's titled as one, but it's important for us to understand that it's compounded by at least 9 other things that go along with it. And again, people think they're righteous. They don't realize they're being a predator. They're stealing from themselves and also being greedy as well. So again, just a reminder, as we try to fix things, we need to understand that we can't fix something unless we're able to label it, unless we all understand what it is, so that we can attach a meaning to it, and then also articulate the work we have to do to make it better. So again, we're going to tonight just begin the conversation about how do we build stronger families. And I want you to be prepared. It's going to be a little bit of a non-traditional way of looking at how we build stronger families. So I believe how we can build stronger families is understanding that families, especially, have a tendency to present conflict. They have relationships that are often the deepest, often the longest that we've had. We share a certain amount of things with family that we wouldn't with others. So it presents some challenges. But what I've seen over and over again is people's ability to manage conflict goes a long way with their ability to manage their families and work within their families. And we have to do a better job of getting people to understand and expect it, and to plan for the conflict, rehearse the conflict, and deal with it. Often, our challenge is we're expecting it not to happen, but it's going to happen. And Mark, if you can mute yourself, and it's important for us to be mindful of it. When I look at most, if not all, of the situations that I am involved with, especially as it relates to families, it is the constant theme is how they have dealt with, are dealing with the conflicts. And go back to the whole person. It's conflicts about recreation. It's conflicts about spirituality. It's conflicts about personal development. It's those whole person life domains. That's often where the conflict is in, and we go through life not being prepared to deal with them. And again, we have to expect them, plan for them, rehearse them, and then deal with them as they happen, and then be prepared to start it all over again. So along with that same lines is that we want to understand that there's a battle that's often making the conflict in our families more challenging. And it's because of what I've titled the SCSs. It's the silence, it's the conflict, and it's the secrets. And if you often look at any of the things that are destroying our families and our communities, they are built on all three of those things. When you look at, the circumstance regarding murder, you look at robberies, you look at infidelity, you look at domestic violence, whatever the circumstance is, it is dependent on silence, conflict, and secrets. And so what is the counter to that? How do we address those three ills? It's by the same acronym. It's by learning to speak up, to have confidence, and to share. Silence asks you not to speak. Conflict asks you not to be confident. Secrets ask you not to share. One of the things that I wish I could do a better job of being able to articulate is the problem is the answer. So often we think, the problem is just the problem, but the solution is in the problem. So if silence is the problem, we must speak. If conflict is the problem, where one is overpowering another, then we need to have confidence. And if secrets are what is being relied on, we must share. So the answer is in the problem. So as we think about making our families better, we just need to understand that the conflicts that have come up that has often taken the stability away from us, we need to start talking about it. I was talking with one person today, and we have part of that roadmap I talked about earlier was developing a mantra, which is a statement that if your worst day happens, you develop a statement that's supposed to bring you back from the edge. And we did this with a person a while back, and they developed a mantra. And that this person's worst case scenario would be the loss of her mother. And guess what happened? She lost her mother. But she developed a mantra in advance that reminded her that life was not going to, her higher power was not going to present her with an option that didn't have a way out. And she remembered that when her mom did pass away. She prepared for the conflict. She expected it. She planned for it. She rehearsed it. And she's dealing with it. And so what's important for us to understand is conflict is going to happen in all those different life domains in different ways, shapes, and forms. But again, if we expect it, we plan for it, we rehearse it, and we deal with it, we're going to be able to manage through it. One other last thing I'd like to share with the group before we have a chance to dialogue for about a half an hour is just remember that as a life navigator, as a person who's trying to make things happen, there are certain ships that we're trying to put on course. The first is recognizing that our own purpose and our purpose ship and why we're sent here, and what our task is a primary ship that we need to have in order. Then, as we're doing tonight, is to have that fellowship. We're working on ourselves along with others, hoping and praying that that turns into us being a better citizen, a better person in our community. And then for those of us that choose, and I think now that I say that it's for everyone, you then are a leader. And the reason why it's important for us to understand we're all leaders, because at any given point, someone is following us, someone's watching us. But often, if we don't have the work done and understanding our purpose and understanding our affiliations with others in our fellowship, understanding our role in our community as a citizen, and understanding our job as leaders is also to figure out the best pathway, and as a citizen, to want the best from our community. Fellowship wanting the best for us, and purpose is wanting to bring out the best in you. So as we think about what we want to do to build families stronger, it's real simple. At least the title is simple, is we have to work on how we manage conflict, and how we expect for it and how we deal with it, and how we learn to make that duration of the conflict as short of a period of time as we possibly can. And again, remembering the role that our purpose, our sense of fellowship, our sense of citizenship, as well as leadership play into building a stronger family. So let me stop there and ask that, hold on a second, you all share with me your thoughts on what we've covered so far, good, bad, or indifferent. Just make sure I've added everybody. I think I can. Oh, this guy I think is, there you go. Okay, it's only 10 people, sorry. So let me stop there and get you, Carl, Kevin, Darnell, Jimmy, Kenyon, Mark, Duran, Nasir, and Joe to share any thoughts on anything we covered. And if it helps for me to bring anything back up, just let me know and I'll pull it back up on screen. But start wherever you want to.
Good evening, everybody. One of the things that you mentioned, Dr. William, that I believe was very important is just the important aspect of looking at conflict from a dynamic of internal and external. Being able to really slow it down, and just realize that it's those conflicts that block you on your pathway to your ships. Finding that initial purpose ship, being able for it to then flow into fellowship, citizen, and leadership. And I think that oftentimes, people want to jump to the leader dynamic. They want to jump to the citizenship dynamic and try to work on the community. But just understanding that, as you pointed out, that the purpose for us to get together tonight is to help us get that first ship in order so that we can in turn help others get their ships in orders too. The poignant point about the problem is also the answer. Definitely being able to have a settled spirit so that way you can just go through a particular circumstance and process it and just realize that a part of living is going through conflict. And when it comes to those areas of the 8 domains, you want to expect that, you want to plan for it, you want to rehearse it, so that way you can deal with it. So it definitely makes sense and provides an element of the 4 M's when we talk about mapping, mentorship, mediation, and mental health and wellness. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And you highlighted a point that I don't think I covered, which was, that we have to expect and plan and rehearse for the external conflicts that are going to happen outside of us, and as we interact with other people. But there's going to also be those internal conflicts we're going to have, and those battles that we may be going through as an individual person. But again, through fellowship and the sense of community, we'll begin to start sharing and learning from each other. What are those things that can happen, and how have people dealt with them? But again, I think, Carl underlines the importance of recognizing that there are internal conflicts that we contend with as a person, but also the ones we're contending with in our families and our communities as well. Other thoughts, other comments, please.
I
Dr.
think.
Williams, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Williams. It's interesting that the thought on conflict and conflict resolution. The two center circles, the one for rehearsing and the one for planning.
Mm-hmm.
In a family dynamic, what does that look like? Like what does planning and rehearsing those type of scenarios look like? Interestingly enough, I deal with high-end luxury hospitality, and I actually teach this to my team members about expecting conflict, planning. We actually rehearse with role playing in our shift briefs and the shift turnovers. But as I think about it, I'm like, well, how do I rehearse that in my family dynamic? How do I rehearse that with my wife? How do I rehearse that with my kids?
Sure. What you do is you take those circumstances, and as you do it at your job, you're already making it happen. So you're going to do the same thing at home. Let's take a situation related to health and talk about it as a family. Let's say the conflict may be that one of the children, one of the parents may have a circumstance that has to be dealt with. Let's talk about it. If dad had to go into the hospital, if mom had to go into the hospital, what would happen? What would go on here in the house? So again, finances, if things got tighter or you won the lottery. Whatever the conflict is just to talk about it, to say, hey, what could happen? What have I seen happen? And often what we don't recognize is that we're often given the opportunity to watch someone else go through it before we have to. But often we don't take advantage of that. We like, that ain't my problem. I'm not dealing with it. But you can learn a lot by watching the other trials and tribulations, but also the successes of other people. So it's just, again, to go down this list that I've shared with you about the whole person, and just start thinking, what are some conflicts that could happen in these areas, and just start making some notes. And that's your pillow talk for tonight. Let's just talk about these circumstances, but also conflicts can be positive. It could be that, hey, your wife gets a master's degree, and you may have just graduated from high school. That could be a conflict if you don't plan for it, because she's going to school. She's going to graduate one day. You're not going to school, so you're not going to graduate. So you can see the conflict coming. So again, we have to expect it, plan for it, rehearse. Think of, and what does it mean by rehearse? Is someone will ask, your wife with a master's degree, a question like, why are you with someone that doesn't have a degree like you? And so what you need to do, so you don't blow up and punch the person in the face, you need to rehearse what your response is going to be to that question. And part of it sometimes is that comeback is so important. So an example, what I would say to a person who, if I was asked that question, I would say, 50% of Americans go on and try to get a degree after high school. 30% of the 50% actually get a degree. So 70% of Americans don't get a degree. What I would tell them is, I'm part of the 70%. And I'm happy being part of the 70%. But we live in a society that wants you to be the 1% with a doctorate. Be happy with who you are. Let no one shame you. But it's that comeback. And that's what the rehearsing allows, is that you have an ability to plan for it. So it's not a surprise, because often it's that winging, that circumstance that causes the problem. I was telling my colleagues that this weekend, a guy ran his bicycle into a car, and I'm like, the stop sign was for the bicycle. He ran into the car, but he made the poor lady feel like it was her fault, and then he gets on the phone and he's calling 911, and he's stating on the phone, calling the lady a moron. This moron hit me with her car and blah blah blah. But then we were talking later, and he confessed this is like his 5th accident that he's had. So, and then the beautiful part is he says he's a lawyer. And I'm like, wow. But you live and you learn. And those circumstances, if you're a bike rider, you're most likely going to get, have some contact with a vehicle or something else, or an animal or something, and prepare for that. And that you have, your ID, and they can easily find it. You have your cell phone, and you're wearing your helmet, because I can tell you, in his situation, that helmet made a difference. I lifted his bike. It was a $3,000 bike, but I can lift the bike with one finger. It is very, very light, thing. So it's when they crash, it's made of special metal, but it is able to be lifted by a finger. So be mindful of that. So hopefully that answers your question about how you prepare for it. Just, make a list of the things you expect to happen or can happen, or have you seen other people deal with, and let's start talking about it. All right. Others, please, any thoughts or comments that you have?
I think what stick out to me the most is the SCSs, the battle of the SCSs. I think for me, I'm guilty. I'm on the wrong side of the column of the SCSs. Like I like to, be silent about things, thinking that's better instead of speaking out on it. You
Mhm.
know, when I'm silent, I'm harping over it and thinking things that's the easy way out. Things gonna be fine, but in
Mhm.
all reality, it's not. Because I'm still thinking about it and not just speaking up and just talking about it. I don't know why I tend to do it, but I do it.
Well, let me try to give you a little bit of something as a placeholder as to possibly why we live in a society that, especially for Black men, which seems like most of us, if not all of us, are on here tonight, there's a very strong effort to oppress and suppress us, and for us not to feel powerful, for us not to feel that situations can be handled and overcome. And so that after so many years of that being ingrained by the health system, the education system, the spirituality system, the financial system. It takes hold, and you have to make a conscious effort to retrain your brain to look at things differently. So don't be surprised. Often the effort is to make us dizzy by design. And it's through this kind of fellowship that we begin to know our strength, and share our wisdom, and recognize we're on our own, but we are not alone. And it's through this kind of community and fellowship that we can begin to come up with some solutions. Other thoughts, comments, questions?
I'm glad you
Yeah,
spoke on saying
I'm sorry.
we're not alone. I said I'm glad you spoke on saying we're not alone because I also wish you can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear.
That's why I reached out for Darnell for mentorship. He helps and guides me through most of my decisions and also redirect.
Okay.
I was going to say that
Hold on one second.
I think we.
1 second, Mark, please.
Mhm.
All right. There you are, Mark.
So I was going to say that a lot of times we have to be comfortable with what we're not comfortable with, and that's death. So I had like my shepherd's like 11 years old, and so soon she'll be going to the Netherlands, and so there's you have to prepare for that because when they go pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And rather than just leave her out in the, you know, leave her on the sidewalk somewhere or in my backyard as she expired, I planned on, I know where to take her, where
Mhm.
they would take care of the body
Mhm.
because I had the experience before. So
Mhm.
that's that being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I know it's coming and I know it's going to be soon.
Mhm.
But then is when it happens, you just have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, I'm a bike rider. I have two. I have a racer that I can pick up with one shoulder. Mine is 1,000, and my mountain bike is a little bit heavier. So
Mhm.
this weekend I took my grandson riding down to the park, and we rode from my house down to Center City to a playground.
Hmm.
And the playground has a padded surface.
Mhm.
And so dismounting is kind of difficult because he's heavy in the back. So, I got to get my leg over the center bar. And so while getting my leg over the center bar, we fell.
Oh
But
boy.
it's padded, yeah, it's a padded surface. So we weren't hurt. I laid there for a minute. I looked at him. He was all right. I was all right. But he had his helmet on.
Mm,
So that's a good thing.
mm,
But a woman jumped up, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I said, "We're fine. We're fine." And he laughed about it. We got up. But it's having that helmet that he doesn't like wearing, but my
mm,
wife makes him wear it.
mhm.
That helped him, that he didn't hit his head.
Wow.
But it was a soft surface. So
Right, right. But again, that helmet is because you've learned to expect it, you planned for it, you rehearsed it, and now you're dealing with it. But
exactly.
rather to deal with bruised ego than an open head. Wow.
Yeah. But it wasn't a bad fall. It was a slow motion fall.
Right.
It
Wow.
was controlled, you know.
Good. All right. Anyone else with any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share?
Could I, good evening all. Can I speak on something real quick? I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes. Who's that?
This is Kevin.
Hold on, Kevin.
So I want to go back a little bit when you touched base on being, of Black descent or African American, if you want to be more politically correct. It is a challenge, and I've had several conversations with you when I was younger, pointing out that fact of being a Black man and trying to break the cycle, if you've had any cycles with parents not being together, parents passing away on you, and you having to be the man and not knowing and having that training and no one to follow, as you had mentioned before about mentoring.
Mm,
And I just want to take this time to say thank you to you for putting this together tonight. I don't know if any of the others can attest to this, but you've been a mentor to me through my younger age. And a gentleman mentioned earlier about him being in an environment where he manages high-end properties or dealing with high-end. I'm in the same situation, and walking into a room of different races, I'm the only African American or the only Black that walks into that room, and it stands out. And that pressure that's put upon you, it is challenging. And then I'm in a position where I have to deal with, arguments and I'm one of, like the other gentleman mentioned, in a management position. You have to be the one that be able to take that, direct it into another direction, train the others, and show them that you have that position and you are where you are for a reason.
mhm.
And putting this together tonight, I think was I've not how many sessions you've had prior to this, but I appreciate you and I thank you for inviting me to this. And I think this is a great step for men to know what it is to take it is a stressful and challenging thing to keep a family together when it's the man of the family's responsibility to hold it together.
Sure.
So thank you.
Sure. And Kevin, thank you. This is only week 3. So we only
Okay.
had other sessions before. And again, I think the answer, I know, I won't say I think, I'll be declarative. The answer is in the room. And it's in this room. And I think as we share with each other the stories, and I think as you just saw, Kevin, the commonality between other individuals who are in a situation where they're dealing with people that have a wonderful sense of entitlement.
Oh, forget about it. Oh yeah.
But I'm hoping that some of the things that we're covering, and just going back to the point that I made about, like, why does it bother you so much when that stuff happens? Let me see if I can find that slide there. Is because they're not just doing one thing. They're not just being entitled. They have illogical thinking. They're also jealous about what someone else has, and they want the same thing. There's a certain amount of silence that they expect, and there's a certain amount of anger. So why it's so difficult, and hopefully as you go back to your staff, you begin to help them understand that they did one thing, and you label it entitlement, but there was a lazy, lackadaisical part. There's a selfishness part. So they did 9 other things, but you only called it one. And so that's why it takes so much, and sometimes your staff lose it because what has been done to them is really very compounded and very difficult. And it takes a very mature person, very intentional person to begin to address those issues. But hopefully it does put things in perspective as to why that customer service is sometimes hard to achieve, because it's not like they were slapped one time, they were slapped 10 times. And sometimes their response, you may feel like it's like a heavy response, but it's response because they were actually smacked 10 times, not just one. But thanks for sharing, Kevin. Sure. Any other thoughts? Any other comments from anyone else before we get ready to wrap up for tonight?
This reminds me of a conversation that I had with my son, because he said, "Dad, why are you so negative?" And my response to him was that I'm not negative. I'm just trying to prepare you for what if. And I said, well, what happens when there's a fire? What's supposed to happen? And he can lay out to me, where everybody's supposed to exit and how he's supposed to, if he can't get through the door, he's supposed to go through the window and so forth and so on. And I said, well, that's the same thing that I'm trying to teach you here. I said, if you go to school and you don't know how to write the paper, where are you supposed to go? Do you go here or do you go here? I said, you have to plan for your obstacles so that you can overcome the obstacle. I said, if you don't have a plan, then you're planning to fail. And so this reminded me of having a plan for, leaving the house in terms of a fire escape. My apartment burned down when I was a kid, and the only reason why I'm alive is because I knew the plan and we rehearsed it. And when when it happened, we knew exactly what to do. So,
and sometimes the challenge is based on those things, Duran, that we've experienced in our life. If we're not careful and intentional, we see fires where there aren't any. So sometimes that challenging life event, and then the kids begin to know, oh, here goes Daddy. He's going to talk about the fire escape, and we just got into the hotel room, and he's pointing out, how do we get out of the hotel room? And so we want to be mindful, as we try to prepare youngsters, that we do it out of our passion and our love for them, not the pain that we experienced previously, because they're living in a whole different world than we were living in. And probably they have to worry about fentanyl more than they probably have to worry about getting out on a fire escape. And so those are the conversations we want to be mindful, that our situation may have been 20 or 30 years ago, but the stuff that they're dealing with now. I was watching a video the other day, and this young man was saying something along the lines is like, you can't unsee what we just saw. And what they just saw was a gentleman, I think, sitting in Kensington on the street, and half of the skin was removed from his arm. And he had, you could see he was at the hospital, and they discharged him with half of the skin removed from his arm. And so just recognizing the stuff that we're dealing with, the stuff that is going on in our society is unlike any other. And we have to stay current with the stuff that we want to have conversations with people about, because this world is forever changing. And again, there's so much. If you look at those life domains that we talked about, there's so much to try to make sure they're schooled about and that they learn about. But again, I hope that as we continue this dialogue together, we can share how we've had those courageous conversations with our wives and our significant others and our children and our bosses, that we were able to share how we're able to navigate this. Because in reality, if you're not navigating, the opposite of navigating is manipulating. And so we want to be a navigator, not a manipulator. And I think we can learn from each other how to be better navigators. I think there was someone else that started talking.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to, you guys are hitting on some major points. And I think that when we talk about conflict, we have to tap into our emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Believe that when we let our intellect overlap our emotions, we can deal with conflict better. But when we are leading with our emotions, the conflict gets greater. And we forgot that we were given a gift by God to have this intellect and this gift to utilize our intellect to solve problems and issues. and have these conversations. So this platform is definitely very important to us as men, but it's even greater for the ones that we're raising.
Mhm.
I just wanted to, definitely stress that.
Sure.
This
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else with any closing thoughts before we wrap up for tonight?
Also, Dr. Williams, the guy that you was talking about in Kensington, that's actually my childhood friend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we grew up together since we was like 8 years old. He also used to live with my aunt Michelle that used to work for the company.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, we trying to get him together and everything. I'm fighting with that too.
Wow. Well, I pray that there's some things that we're able to dialogue about that you can, bring to offer him, because I'm sure there's, as long as he's still breathing, there's still hope, and hopefully we don't give up on him, even though his situation looks a little dire. All right. Anyone else with any thoughts or comments before we wrap up? All right. So I'm going to clean up this formatting because there are people that were texting me that they're trying to join, and so I'll get this cleaned up. But just so you know, going forth, I'll invite people to be part of the conversation, and then you'll get a separate invite. But if you ever want to watch the show, and you have people that you would like to watch the show, just go to my YouTube channel that's on the screen. And you just click live and you click the show, and then you'll be able to watch the show. But again, for you guys, I'll continue to lean on you to be a co-host with me in this conversation, and hope that it's providing a resource for the community in a good way. So again, I'll send you the link for the 10 of you or 12 of you to join the group. But anyone else you want to join, please take down that YouTube channel and take it from there. This will go on YouTube. It is recorded, and it's on YouTube. It will be on YouTube and Facebook. So the editor will clean it up and make it pretty. And we'll start archiving these so that we can refer back to them. And then you can tell your family that you're a YouTube star, you're a content creator. No, look at that. All right. It's been wonderful. We'll look back to getting back together next Monday at 8 p.m. Take care.